Hello there, welcome to lesson number 6 in our series on using FluidDesigner for 3D printing to create lampshades and desk lamp covers. Today's lesson we're going to show you how you can use a ZMath surface to create a lampshade. So if you start off FluidDesigner, first thing we need to do is to go to Learning Projects, Lighting Projects. And we want lesson number 6, so it's 06, a ZMath surface. And I'll just switch on the screencast key, so any key presses I make should be displayed down here. And this is the object that we're going to recreate in this lesson, and we're going to use a ZMath surface to create it. So in the help panel here it says add mesh, math function, ZMath surface. So let's do that. So it's add mesh, math function, and a ZMath surface. And as you can see at the moment, the object is really tiny, but we need to change the dimensions of it, and we're going to set X at 200 millimeters and Y at 250 millimeters, and as you can see the object is getting bigger now, and Z at 100 millimeters. Now there are some, if we open up the toolbox panel, this ZMath function, there are some parameters we can set here. The subdivisions, the X and Y subdivisions, will actually change the smoothness of the surface. It will increase the number of faces in the surface. But I'm not going to worry about that in this particular lesson. But just to point out, it is there in the toolbox panel. Now, whenever we do resize in FluidDesigner, as we've just done here, changing these dimensions, we always need to reset the scale, so we can do Control A and reset the scale. If we don't do that, we could end up with problems when we come to print. The next thing we want to do is, if you notice this at the moment is a different orientation, so what we want to do is, this is the X-axis. If we rotate this object about the X-axis, and we can do it in the properties window here, okay, so I can just rotate it like that, or I can just enter in 90 degrees. That will reorientate the object like that. So it mirrors what we've got at the bottom. So that's just a case of rotating it. Now what we want to do is we want to add these holes to the mesh. So if we go to View and Front and just zoom in, we want to put some holes in the object, and we can, first of all, we need to go into edit mode to do that. So we press the tab key on the keyboard. Now all the faces are selected at the moment, so to deselect all the faces, it's the A key on the keyboard. It's A to select all, A to deselect them. And so now we need to delete some of these faces and create this hole pattern. Well, if I highlight that face there and press X on the keyboard and delete it, I can delete one at a time. Highlight a face, X, and delete. That's obviously a very slow way of doing it. The best thing to do is to hold down the Shift key and select a whole series of faces, and then delete them all in one go. So this will take a few seconds. Okay, so those are all the faces on that side. Now I'm going to do the same on the other side now, so make it a symmetrical pattern. If you make any mistakes, you obviously have to go back and probably start again. So do be a little bit careful as you do this. Try and make sure you get all the faces. Okay, so there's all the faces that we're going to delete. So it's then X on the keyboard and delete those faces. So that replicates the holes in the object. So we can now come out of edit mode. Now we've deleted all of those. And the next thing we want to do is, well, if we zoom in on this object, you can see at the moment it's just a thin shell. It's got no thickness to it, unlike the finished object. So the next thing we want to do is to give it some thickness, and we can do that in the properties window by selecting the modifier. And the modifier that we want to use is a solidify modifier. And what we want to do is to give it a thickness of 3 millimeters. That'll be okay. So you can see it's added some thickness there. Now to apply this modifier in FluidDesigner, we've always got to go to Tools, Object Tools, and convert it to a mesh, and it will disappear from the properties panel there, and you won't be able to change it again now. So let's That's a view from the front. If we view it from the right hand side now, the next thing we want to do is we want to make a duplicate of this on the other side. Now there are various ways in which you can do it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on Show the Main Information icon, and if I move this object to the left to make it in line with this one, so if I just click on here, and the value I want to get to is minus 25 millimeters, so I've offset this from the center by 25 millimeters. And what I'm then going to do is I'm going to use a modifier called a mirror modifier. So if you imagine that we had a mirror here, we would make a mirror copy of this item. That's what we want to do. We don't want to build all of this other side again from scratch. We just want to mirror this, duplicate it. But before we apply the mirror modifier, we need to reposition this, the center of the object. And the way that we can do that is if we go to Tools, Object Tools, what we want to do is we want to change the origin of the current object, and we want to change it to the cursor. This here, this circle here, this is the cursor. So we need to go to Tools, Object Tools, change the origin to the cursor. And as you can see, the center of this object is now the same as the cursor, and that is also the z-axis here. So what we can do now is if we mirror about that axis, we will replicate the finished object at the bottom. So if we go to Add Modifier and apply a mirror modifier, well, nothing happens, but there are lots of options here. Well, this is the axis that we're trying to mirror it about, so what we should do is to tick that and remove the tick from the x-axis. If we change it to y, you'll see it doesn't work, z doesn't work, sorry, x doesn't work, but z does, because this is the z-axis. That's what we want to mirror it about. Now, like any modifier, we must apply it. So to do that, we go to Tools, Object Tools, and convert it to a mesh again once we're happy that it's right. Okay, so there's our mirror modifier. Has enabled us to duplicate this object so that it looks symmetrical. So that's all we need to do now. So what we can do is we can delete the original one from the workspace. This is the one that we've created in today's lesson. So we can save this, and if we go to File, and we always recommend you go to Save As, go up through the menu system, look for My Projects, Lighting Projects, and we can save Lesson 06, the ZMath surface, as a Blender file. Now we can't print Blender files, and it's always a good idea to double check them in NetFab Basic. So if you go to File, first of all, export it as a wavefront object and export it to the desktop. So it's 06 ZMath surface perforated, and we save that as an object file. And then if we start up NetFab Basic, if we go to Project and Open, we go to the desktop and open ZMath surface perforated. That's the object that we've created. And as is usual in NetFab, we go to Extras and repair the part. And if we just move the window across, you can see there are no problems. There are no border edge problems, no orientation, and no holes. But NetFab has triangulated the mesh as normal, so just run automatic repair and apply the repair and remove the old part. And so that's it. There's your finished printable mesh now. So you just go to Part, export the part as a wavefront object, export it to the desktop. So the file with the name repaired on it, that's the file that you should send to the printer. Now I should say that as with all of these objects, in terms of lighting covers, they are very large, relatively very large, and they are very expensive to print at today's prices. But anyway, we're just showing you how to do it. So that's the end of this lesson. Thank you.